joining me right now, and we welcome your questions because we're about to talk about parenting. So please do text us on 2101 and we'll try to get to those. Catherine Burkett, she has a master's in educational psychology, and through her practice Engage, she teaches others about using neuroscience in everyday life. Kia ora, Catherine. Thanks for joining us.
Kia ora, thank you.
An emotional gym. How do you exercise your emotions?
Yeah, so for building resilience, we need to go to the gym. I like to sort of encompass the fact that when I was a kid, and I'm just, let's say, a little bit over 50, when I was a kid, my parents didn't understand how to build resilience. They didn't have any neuroscience around it. They told me to get out of the house, go up the back of the farm, hang out. And through that time, I did lots of tolerable stress. This is what we talk about with the emotional gym. And we did it naturally.
Tolerable stress.
Tolerable stress, which is absolutely essential for building resilience. We think we want to keep our kids away from all stress.
Yeah.
But so what my parents did is sent me out of the house, get out of the house, and I naturally learnt it. So now we have a lot more.
Did you live on a farm, did you?
I did live on a dairy farm, yes.
Okay.
Good way to grow up.
Would they ask you to go and do some work on the farm or just go for a wander?
Oh, no, I definitely had to do the work as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But I talked a lot, as you can tell. So
Yes.
I was also told
So
to.
did I.
So through that, I naturally learnt resilience through my tolerable stress moments. Now we spend a lot more time in the presence of our kids, and it's hard to be in the presence of our kids when they're activating tolerable stress. So we often try and fix it. And what happens is we lose resilience. We lose the joy of going into tolerable stress. So it's more about having to be aware of it and actually physically teaching our kids how to be resilient.
So what you're saying, when as a parent and our children are exercising tolerable stress, in other words, they're stressed, but they're coping. They're fine. They're just dealing with it in their way. And we think, oh no, something's wrong. We gotta sort this out now. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, and we jump in. So why I say going to the emotional gym is because if you went to the gym and you wanted to build your muscle, you'd pick up a weight that hurt. It's got to hurt, but it's got to hurt tolerably. If you pick up a weight that's too heavy, you're going to damage. But if you pick up a weight that's too light, you're not going to make any difference. So
No.
The tolerable is like building a muscle at the gym, and that's why I like to use that analogy because it makes so much sense. But what we're sort of doing as parents now is as soon as we see our kids struggling, we jump in and lift the weight for them, or tell the school or tell everyone else, stop doing that. I don't want my kid to have any stress in their lives. But actually, you see what we're doing? We're not even letting them go to the tolerable emotional gym. So they're not building anything.
So, Catherine, give me an example, maybe, that happening in practice.
So if our kids come home and they've had a bad day at school and someone's been mean to them, we might often jump straight in, heal it for them, write to the school, say, I don't want them talking to that kid anymore, rather than, again, at the gym, if you were struggling, we'd give them a little bit of support, but not too much. You'd spot someone if they were struggling with a weight. So we might actually leave it alone. We might give them some advice to try tomorrow, or we might actually just talk to some teachers and say, could you just keep an eye on this, but don't jump in straight away. And when I talk to parents and do these sessions, it makes such a difference of how much we jump in. I want parents to step back a little bit and hold before we engage.
And probably the first time you hear the news from school, it would not be, I want to fix it, would be, would you, I mean, you'd say something, wouldn't you? You'd say, oh, that doesn't sound too good. That sounds like a bit of a pain. There'd be a bit of empathy there, wouldn't there?
You want empathy, but I can promise you that these days there is significantly higher likelihood of parents jumping in very quickly and dictating sort of what's going on and stuff like that. Not just with schools, but with sports organisations. When you've got coaches, they're saying they can't tell the kids that they've lost anymore, so everybody has to win now. Nobody's allowed to lose because they might feel upset because they lost. Well, do you see? Losing is part of life, and it's tolerable.
Yes.
It hurts.
Cope.
We cry. And
Yeah.
I don't want them not to get upset if they lose because that's a good thing. But I don't want them to lose the absolute plot. But we have to lose in life. We're never going to win everything. And so the best way to practice is to practice losing.
I mean, I might have been guilty of, in fact, I'm bound to have been guilty of this. I've got a 15-year-old at the moment, and there was a football game the other day. He's Goldie. And he let in 11 goals. and I struggle with that. It was also, I was kind of got this, stop barking at them, I was thinking, because goalies do bark at they shout. And you got to lead by example. And so on the drive home, I gave him a bit of this talk, and he said, well, that wasn't very helpful. And the reason I'm mentioning this now is because I might have thought it was a bit of a tragedy, and maybe it was more about me. In fact, it was more about me, really, wasn't it? Let's be honest here. It was more about me. I'm the dad, and he's bleeding in goals, and I don't like that. I'm struggling with this. And he went home. He got in the shower, and he's singing in the shower a few minutes later. So that's telling me that whatever went on in the game, which wasn't the best for him, he didn't enjoy it, but it wasn't traumatized. I mean, he was singing in the shower as soon as he got home. That doesn't sound like somebody who's traumatized, does it?
No, absolutely. And what do we see from him? And obviously, it's too early to tell, but does he go back to practice? Does he keep playing? And does he actually up his game because he felt that disappointment? Whereas if you'd saved it or they'd taken him off, oh, stop. You know, we've got to let them feel that, engage in it, so that it does push us to try harder next time. And also, maybe the other team was just way better, and that's called life. You know, like, and maybe they were really good, and he didn't have the skills to block them, and that's actually okay as well. It's not that we can do things naturally. And it's that resilience. We really have to let our kids engage in those moments of emotional stress. And yes, as parents, mirror neurons in the brain mean when my kids feel sad, I've got two beautiful young people in my world, when they feel sad, I feel sad. Mirror neurons. So we are actually saving ourselves from the disappointment just as much as we're saving them, which makes it really difficult.
What happens if you don't let them feel a bit of pain? And what is the downside of that?
Oh, we see it all the time.
Yeah.
We see it all the time. It's lack of resilience. So lack of resilience can come from too much stress, and lack of resilience can come from none. Do you see if you go to the gym and only lift 2 heavy weights, you're gonna be unhealthy. If you go to the gym and never lift a weight, you're not going to make any progress. So parents who overparent, and I've got a presentation on my website that helps people understand that overparenting can really hinder our kids' emotional resilience, and we're not doing it on purpose. We're doing it out of a natural desire to make sure our kids are happy. But when we understand the science, we learn to step back and let them engage in it a little bit more, which is so important. We can't take away stress in our life, but we can build resilience.
You talk about it as a gym, which suggests that there are exercises, like a fixed exercise, like or where you train yourself, and therefore it's almost planned rather than just a haphazard event and responding to that. So what are some of the things that we can actually do then in an organised way that give kids a bit more strength to cope when things don't go the way they want them to?
Perfect. So when we've got enough resilience, and I'm talking about just a regular amount of resilience, we can actually let kids just, like I said, my parents send me up the back of the farm with my siblings, with my friends, and that happened naturally. But when we are starting out, we do need to make it purposeful, like you said. And the best example is when we play the first basic game with our babies, and we play peekaboo, and we hide our faces from them, and they look up, they're trying to find their safety, we've disappeared, and they physically activate into the stress response. Their little arms go up, their eyes dilate, and then we uncover our face, they see us again, and you watch them. They go from being stressed to calm. Oh, she's back. Oh, she's gone again. Oh, she's back. And what we're doing there is planning on purpose, making them feel scared, tolerably, and then coming back down. We don't chuck them in the cupboard and play hide and seek when they're a baby. That's intolerable stress. When we play this little piggy round the garden, we're making them feel anxious to a tolerable level, playing in that relationship with us, and then the piggy gets home and they calm down again. When we get older, if our kids have still got low resilience, we go out places. We take them to the park where they feel a bit scared going up the slide, or we take them to a place out in the public where they feel a bit scared, but we make sure it's tolerable. We be near them so that we can facilitate that calming down when it's needed, but we purposefully create these spaces so we're in control. Absolutely exact, as you said.
Do we have to let children wander off? By that I mean we actually give them time away from us and down at the park or down the road.
Yeah, and obviously you've got to be careful saying just let your kids out about. And I mean, obviously we did when I was much younger, and it was a whole different space. And by the way, it's more dangerous online than it is out in the world often these days. But I know it's hard for parents. I work with a lot of whānau and stuff, so I get that it's hard. So why I'm saying not necessarily down at the park, but if you go to the park, can you just, I don't know, have a coffee with a friend and not jump up and save them every time? Or let the person in the relationship who's less likely to jump in, take them, and you stay home, so that when they go to the park and they climb up a bit higher than they should, or they're dangling off something, you're not there to jump up and save them. Does that make sense? Or let the uncle or let the auntie that's got the daredevil personality, let them take them out every now and then, who are more likely to put them into that space. At school, give the school permission, give coaches permission to let them have those moments. Does that make sense? Because sometimes we find it much harder as a parent. So sometimes we've got to give that job out to someone else.
And you're touching on something I was going to bring up, which is that it might be already very well to say we need gyms and we should train these things. But, the reality is in our busy lives, our time-poor lives, that we will forget that stuff. But there are things we can do just in our everyday lives. So it's as much an attitudinal challenge for parents, isn't it? As it is saying, right, let's set aside time for your brain gym, your emotional gym now. Boy, here we go. I'm going to walk out of the house and come back in a minute and you're going to cope, all right?
Yes, and also, by the way, it has to be when they're feeling their safest. We go to the gym, but you're absolutely right. But we can find lots of spaces for that to happen, right? We can organise when someone says, "Oh, can they come over to our place?" Yes, is that okay? And or a slight hesitation. And by the way, kids on devices, there is extremely high unlikely that they're building emotional gym on there. That place that online that usually keeps them in the stress response, and the emotional gym.
I'm just going to jump in there.
Okay, go for it.
Just because, some of the frustration that my son expresses is when he can't get the racing car to do what he wants it to do. That's disappointment.
When we look at and you're absolutely right.
I'm being slightly devil's advocate
No,
here, but
that's
still.
perfect, because otherwise people listening are going to think the same thing. Now, obviously, I do 4-day retreats, by the way, so I've got lots to say about this stuff. When your son's body is in that stress response and he's feeling disappointment, he's holding it. The emotional gym is the time when he goes from disappointment back down to calm. Now, online, they don't want you to go back down to calm, because once you get back to calm, you can engage the part of your brain that's logical and rational, and you go, actually, I've had enough time online. They keep you in an active state, an active emotional state. So yes, he's feeling disappointment, but he's maintaining that disappointment, holding that stress response system, the fight-flight activation, which is actually unhealthy, because what the gym is going from that down to calm. Do you see? And that's very unlikely happening when we're doing YouTube, playing games online, because the technology giants don't want us to activate back down to calm. So yes, we feel disappointment, but we don't feel that reaction back to calm. Does that make sense?
I could come back to that chestnut in a moment, but I've got a message here from John. Yesterday, the discussion about the teachers' strike mentioned that the students were different now, and the challenges were greater in creating learning experiences that the students will engage with. What can parents do to help their kids be ready to learn?
Beautiful question. Thanks, John. Obviously, I work a lot in education, and the kids are different, and we could go into that. We could do a whole nother day on that one. What parents can do is what I'm talking about, take them to the emotional gym. What parents can do is allow teachers a little bit more flexibility in what they're doing at school, but we also have to support them. We also have to let them know when they're doing an amazing job, because at the moment teachers are under a lot of pressure, and for lots of reasons, genetic reasons, environmental reasons, our behaviour is becoming more difficult. But one of the reasons, and you sort of just touched on the thing before with technology, is that ability to get into what we call our default mode network, which is our wandering brain, which is our calm brain, which is our brain that actually, that's when those earphones would have connected and said that we're in that wandering state. That's actually really healthy. And I learnt to do that a lot when I was 3.5, 4, because my parents left me to play with my toys for hours by myself. Our kids don't have that so much, so we don't have a ability to get into that default mode network, that ability to get into a wandering brain so much. That's a really overarching concept. But do you see, I used to go into my wandering brain and that didn't worry the teacher. Might not have been concentrating, but it wasn't a problem. Now it's less likely for our kids to do that, so they activate up into a trying to find some stimulation somewhere. So, yeah.
Here's a question which I think relates to this quite a lot, emotional resilience, and that is, what does Catherine think about boarding school from the age of 9 or 10? Because that throws kids in the deep end.
All of these things, even when we're talking about early childhood, boarding school and stuff, we do have to think about the individual. We do have to think about how the individual's handling that. What we want is we want our young people to be feeling safe enough, first of all, most of the time, and then going into moments of tolerable stress. So they've got someone who is there able to just monitor that and help that. If that's happening at the boarding school at that age, then great. If it's not, then it's not great. And that's the time our kids are going through huge changes in their brain-body systems. And sometimes it's really hard to find someone in those schools who's got the ability to connect and be that main connector person. If you have, then it's great. I wouldn't say yes or no, but you'd really have to understand your young person and the school. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it would be more damage than positive.
Catherine, I'm going to go back to that chestnut of when you're talking about how technology, the firms that provide the games, the online games that kids get hooked to, they do this deliberately. They work out how to get you hooked. Because the more you play, the more money they make. It's part of the business model. But the reality is that that's how kids spend a lot of their time now. So is it about saying, right, get off the device, which is a constant battle that many of us have at the moment, and we have this constant war with our children, or is it a little bit more nuanced than that?
First of all, we've got to understand there's some people that do find device calming, so it's not a global. By the way, I've got a TEDx talk, totally free on YouTube, that talks, it's called The Neuroscience of Device Zombies. Helps you understand the science of what's happening while we're on devices. And I'm saying, yes, we do need to get them off. I've got 2 kids of my own, and I know how hard it is. But what they're getting when they're on is massive dopamine kicks, dopamine that is out of the blue, that is novel, and it's just so exciting for the brain. What we get when we're not on the devices is a slower activation, more endorphins and oxytocin activation. What that means is that fast activating dopamine is so appealing, but it's actually not good for our brain-body system. We've got to get our kids off it and not say just get off the device. I was really lucky when my son was quite addicted to, not addicted, but playing a lot. I was able to build a half basketball court at home. So I would say, hop off and we'll go play. So we'd go shoot hoops, you see, and then he'd play by himself for hours because he had something that was going to activate dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin. Do you see what I mean? Mm. So we still have to do something. I'm not saying do it with them, but allow them to go to their friends or do something fun. But I absolutely know how hard it is, but we do need to try. We do need to try because there's so many negative things that are happening for the brain-body system and for the learning, the myelination, what they're seeing, feeling, hearing online. We do have to be careful. But I also am saying this with a complete understanding of how hard it is because these are made to be dopaminergic addiction devices.
Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll keep up the good work.
Thank you.
You're doing it. I don't know about me. I'm just trying to do my best, just a simple man trying to make his way in the universe. Catherine Burkett, here to talk with her Masters in Educational Psychology and her Practice Engage about helping us be better parents.